Hi, everyone. Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law and Mediation, the Why Do Pets Matter podcast, which, if you haven't checked it out yet, you should. And of course, this wonderful MAAP community where my community navigates the journey their pet's going to take if they can't care for it. So before everybody comes, I'm going to give a little bit of a tutorial on what MAAP means, because sometimes we are so involved speaking to each other that I forget to let everyone who's new to the program or to the community understand why we meet every Wednesday. We meet every Wednesday because we want to make sure we have a plan in place for the care of our pets if anything happens to us. Short term, long term, broken leg, delay at the airport, dementia, disease, disability, divorce, death. So this plan is made outside of your will so you can update it every time you bring a new pet into your life, or if something with the pet you have changes, you can update it. And if the caregivers change, and if your plans change. This is why I created this plan. And attorneys love it because it gives them the opportunity to help their clients make a plan for their pets and make sure that those plans are put in place. So before I check in with all my wonderful community members, I am going to say the MAAP stands for Make a Plan. You have to absolutely sit down and write the plan up, appoint caregivers, address the needs of your pet, and remember to address them every year because they change. And then publish that plan, because that plan is absolutely no good to you if you stick it in a drawer and you don't tell the people who are your caregivers, plus your attorney, plus your veterinarian, plus your family, what you want to do with your pets. So I'm so glad all of you are here, and I'm going to check in with Connie and see how things are going with the Wheaton wild ones.
Well, the Wheaton wild ones are doing very nicely. Thank you. A big milestone this week. Casey, who was certified as a therapy dog a couple of months ago, actually went on his first 2 visits this week. On Monday, we went to Chapman University in the city of Orange, just down the road from us, to de-stress college students who are staring at finals next week. And we had a lovely 2-hour visit with 4 other dog teams in the student union, with masses and masses of students coming to be de-stressed.
Beyond, right?
The lineup was, out and around the building.
It was like you were rock stars.
We absolutely were, but it was put on by the Student Psychological Counseling Group, which is a wonderful service the university offers. And the kids were delightful. They were just as lovely as can be, and we had a wonderful time. And then this morning we went to a middle school in Long Beach and met kids and talked to, and we again were with 4 other dog teams, and we talked about responsible dog ownership. We talked about our dog breeds, what they were bred for, their history, and basically introduced the kids to what dogs and responsible dog ownership are all about. So it was terrific. I would say about 2/3 of the kids did have dogs, some of them in multiple dog households. So it was wonderful. And again, the kids were delightful, very courteous. But we are staring down to get to one of the D's, disaster, which is always present in California throughout the state. We had a smattering of rain on Tuesday, but we're about to get hit with a significant rainstorm, at least for us. Tomorrow, 1/2 inch of rain, but then next Monday and Tuesday, we're supposed to have a real zinger coming down the Pacific coast that will dump anywhere from 1 to 4 inches on the metro Los Angeles area. And they're expecting flooding. So again, where do you go with your dogs, especially as the street water is rising? So that's one of the D's. And another, well, I don't know what you would call it as far as one of the D's, but something for people in multiple dog houses, households to ponder. And that is, what happens if one of your dog has to go suddenly to the vet and you have 1 or more other dogs at home? Who takes care of them? I am very pleased to announce that Casey has a new little brother, literally, same father, one of my friend Bonnie's dogs, but he decided to come in the middle of the night. Unfortunately, there was only one other puppy in the litter, and he was stillborn. But Bonnie and her co-owner, another friend of mine, had to go racing out at 2 a.m. to find an emergency vet because this other puppy who survived and is thriving, fortunately, didn't want to come out of mom.
Yes.
So they had to find an emergency vet literally in the middle of the night. And Bonnie has 2 adult Wheatons at home. So she fortunately has a network of people she could call, and she left her side door open to her garage so one of her dog walkers could get in and at least let her adult girls out. And they were racing around in the middle of the night in the Inland Empire trying to find an emergency vet. Unfortunately, everything came out just fine. The vet was wonderful. But Bonnie's big concern too was, what does she do with her dogs at home?
Right. It's something that comes upon you. The realization comes upon you in the middle of the night when you have to leave the house. And what are you going to do? For me, I just realized, great news, some of you might know already, that the juniper bug is coming home on Monday, the 13th of December. And our landlord, who had said no pets, no pets, no pets, said we've been such good tenants that he will allow us to have Junie here without doing it surreptitiously. He goes, most of my tenants don't tell me. And we said, well, we just figured we'd ask. And he goes, absolutely, you can have Junie. So my Christmas present is arriving December 13th in the form of a red hairy dog. And I have to tell you that picking him up from the handler is going to be a nightmare because I have to drive to South Carolina to meet Thomas, who's my son, who's going to pick up Junie in Orlando. Whether or not my handler will be there on Sunday, which would be easier for both of us to get the dog, but it doesn't seem so. So Tom will have to pick him up on Monday. And then I had to, so this is a great, I always tell you, if a disaster is coming, call a hotel and make a reservation. Make sure you call the hotel, that you don't use one of those hotel websites, because then you can't cancel it if you don't need it. So I called the hotel in Savannah, but before I called the hotel, I read all of the pet restrictions, and some of them said no pets over 20 pounds. And although Junie is thin, he is no way under 20 pounds. He is likely more like 60 pounds. So I had to keep going through the hotels that were available for pets to find a hotel in Savannah that would allow a pet. And then I kept saying, so this is me, and you should do it too. I kept saying to the front desk person, now you know I'm bringing a pet. Now you know I'm bringing a pet. Now you know I'm bringing a pet. Because I don't want to walk in and have them say, oh, we didn't know you were having a pet. So it's on the reservation. It's everywhere. You really have to be proactive. You can't ask them once and then say, oh, I told them. No, you have to really be proactive about that. It's so, so important. So now I'm so glad that Junie's going to be home. However, in January, I'm going to a conference. And where is Junie going to go? Okay, I have to find care for Junie while I'm at the conference, even though Jim is here. We don't know, what the situation is going to be. That'll be fluid. I'll keep you posted. But he has to learn the fence. And if he doesn't, what am I going to do to make sure he's safe? And secondly, I have to find a vet. And so I'm going to have the same issue that most owners have, which is I've moved, 700 miles away from my 25-year vet relationship. And I have to say, I spoke to a vet today who was recommended by my neighbor, and she said, oh, you'll love him because he raises Black Russian Terriers. So he's a breeder, so he's breeder friendly. So when I called this afternoon to make an appointment, well, I must say, backing up, I've called him 7 times to meet him, and he would not meet me unless I had a dog. He did call me back once, but I missed it, unfortunately, and then he never called me again. And when I made my reservation today, since I'm my appointment today with Junie, since I'm a new client, I had to give him a credit card for a $25 charge in the event I don't show up. And I said, I work with veterinarians all over the world. And that is such a client killer, even though I understand. And, on my Calendly, you have to pay $100 to speak to me for 30 minutes, and that will be applied to your bill if you hire me. But this keeps all the people who want to pick my brain for nothing not calling me. And I understand. However, the way they did it was so without any sort of transparency. Listen, we love that you're a new client. We always want our new clients to feel welcome. We have had some bad experiences with people who call and then don't show up. So we've initiated this $25 fee, and we know that this is really not the best way to start our relationship, but we've found that we need to do this just to simply make sure everybody shows up, not to just presume that I'm going to know why they're charging me $25 and accept that they're going to charge me $25. So I'll let you know how it goes. I'm not necessarily keen because this veterinarian went to a vet school that isn't in the United States. So I'm sort of like, not Cornell, not Tufts, not any of the ones I'm used to. So we'll have to see. I know I'm a vet snob. I get it. I am. However, when you have dogs that are so important and you have a reproductive program that you are working with, you really need a vet who's more of your partner than someone who wants to tell you what to do. Yes, Connie.
You've got one of the premier vet schools right in North Carolina, NC State. And in fact, they do a lot of research with Wheaton's. Have you thought about asking for a referral through them?
I have, and I've also asked for a referral through my colleagues at Vet Partners. So I will do that again, but I am 3 hours from NC State. So to go to NC State is a little difficult. I'm actually going to, that's a great idea. Again, I love this group because I get so many great ideas. I will reach out to my colleagues at NC State at the vet school and ask them for a referral. Unfortunately, on the East Coast of Carolina, people come to vacation, and I'm not so sure there's only one AHA rated vet practice here, only one. There's about 10, but only one is AHA rated. Which means,
my vet is AHA rated too.
Right.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, because we're using an acronym, it's the Association of Animal Hospitals, or it's the American
Association of Animal Hospitals.
Yes. No, it's
the
Association of Animal
Hospitals of America, something like that. Yeah.
Something like that, close enough for government work.
Right.
So it's just been such a crazy day, and knowing that Junie's coming home is so exciting and so worrisome for me, because now I have to know that, I'm going to make sure he doesn't do anything here at the rental, that I take him for a walk. So that means next week, I'm going to have to build in 3 hours to walk him 3 times, and maybe take him to the beach. Then I have to figure out, as we all know, if you take your dog to the beach and he has hair, which mine does, how will he look when he comes home? He will look like a Sandman instead of an Irish setter. So I'll have to wash him, and then what'll I do with him? So these are things that you have to consider when you have a pet. If you take them to a VRBO or something like that, you have to consider that. And if you're moving to a new place, knowing that for the first 3 to 6 months, you have to be hyper vigilant, because this is a new place for them. They don't have the security of knowing where they are or where anything is. So it really is important for you to build in that plan to make sure the pets know what they're doing. Susan, before I get to you, I just want to share something. Over in October, when I was up in New York, we learned that someone who was very near and dear to me passed away. I know we're having a lot of Irish setter people pass away these days. It's really stinky. But Lois Gepford passed away, and she had 6 dogs. Everybody has 6 dogs. And initially, everyone seemed to think that her partner would keep the dogs. However, now that isn't working out, because 2 of the girls are arguing with each other. They were kennel dogs, but now they've gone to a foster home that can't keep them because they argue, but has trained them to be house pets. So we're looking for an 11-year-old, 2 11-year-olds, a home for 2 11-year-olds, females, sorry. And then one 12-year-old male, I think, has been placed. But again, here are dogs who are relying on Lois to make sure they had a soft landing. They're 11 years old, and she relied on one person. So what's my mantra? Three and the rescue, three and the rescue. So the rescue is now there, but they don't have those two cushions, right? They had the person she was, her partner who she was living with, but they had nobody else. And so the Irish Setter Club America is really good about finding people for pets. But as anyone can imagine, finding a pet for an 11-year intact female Irish setter might be a little bit of a difficult mountain to climb. So please, 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 if you have a dog, whether he's a year old or 11-year-old, make a plan. And then I had an inquiry from one of the people who were here last week saying, I don't have any neighbors that I can reach out to and call upon to help me. And I'm just going to say here so that when they listen to this program again, and anyone who was here new and hasn't heard me mantra this, poor Karen, poor Susan, poor Connie, just go to your neighbors who have pets and offer to do for them what you want them to do for you. So in the event, in the middle of COVID, it was much more self-explanatory, right? If I get sick, if you get sick, please call me, I'll take care of your pet. So everybody knew what you meant. Now it's a little distant, so they might think you're a little wacky. So you might have to add a little bit more to that 3x5 card. But just say, dear, golden retriever owner, because you probably might not know their name. I just want to tell you that I live here, and given the circumstances of life these days, I just wanted to offer that if anything happened to you, I walk by your dog every day. I love him. I have a dog. You might notice me. I'm the one with the Irish setter. If something happens to you, please know I will help take care of your pet while you're gone, and help you transition it if you need to. Just call me and leave your name and number and address so that they can get in touch with you. You have to offer to do something before somebody's going to offer to do it for you. And sometimes I know that's really hard to ask for help, because we're all independently wonderful and can do anything ourselves. However, our dogs can't, and they're counting on us to navigate that journey they're going to take when we can't personally care for them. So you have to make sure you're there. So Susan, how's the old Maggie girl? Is she being good or is she being naughty?
Well, she is being good most of the time, but she's very reactive to noise in the house. The phone rings. I talk to Tom, whatever. So I'm looking in, my vet's proposing trazodone.
Right. And the side effects of that you have to know, and you have to ask your veterinarian in the size of dog you have, because she's a little girl, what the side effects are.
The vet knows her because she was brought into that vet for her grooming. So they sedated her to get the grooming.
Right.
So I've been so torn about this, and I haven't even been able to bring myself yet to go there and get the prescription.
Right.
It's sitting there waiting for me to come pick it up. And I've just kind of been just distressed.
It's difficult. Yeah, it's difficult because this is sort of leaving the behavior management with Kathy behind a little bit to try to get an immediate lessening of the reactivity. And that is a big decision. Also, there is never not a side effect to a medication you're going to give your dog.
Right.
Metronidazole has a side effect. It's great for diarrhea. It has a side effect. Acepromazine has a side effect. We used to give that freely like chiclets for dogs that were afraid of lightning and thunder until we all realized there was a terrible side effect and we stopped. Connie, what has your experience been?
Well, I was just going to say that trazodone, of course, is a sedative. And I have only used trazodone for 1 to 3 days post-surgery. My vets have me wean my dogs off it as soon as they are out of the really acute pain stage after any kind of a surgical procedure, or gabapentin. That's the other painkiller that they will recommend post-surgery. But again, they wean my dogs off it immediately. I usually get my dogs off it a day post-surgery because they're they have a high threshold for pain. But the other medications that are available now, and there is a whole host of very good ones, are behavior modification drugs, like Prozac, for instance, that they use in people. When people have all kinds of personality disorders or mental disorders, and so you might talk with not only your primary care vet, but I would see if you could find a veterinary behaviorist who is actually a specialist,
Right.
because there are all kinds of breeds in which reactivity runs high.
Part of their DNA, right?
It's part of their DNA. Wheatons are one of them, and I know this from my rescue experience because we had a lot of reactive Wheatons come into rescue. Nothing wrong with the dogs, just bad circumstances or bad breeding that triggered it. But excuse me, my phone's ringing.
It's interesting because that was the other choice. She mentioned fluoxetine, which I think is Prozac.
Right.
And, but she said, let's start with the trazodone. And
So have you talked to Kathy about what she would do?
she said she would leave that to the vet, the purview.
Okay.
That's kind of out of her.
So there is a
purview.
vet that you can look up. He's an animal behaviorist. I had him, you can listen to his interview on Why Do Pets Matter. His name is Jeff Nickel. He's out of New Mexico.
Nickel?
Nickel, Nichol, no S. And he's you can get his information off my podcast, Why Do Pets Matter? Just go down till you see the one that says Jeff Nickel. Because animal behaviorists are really the best. And you can also get in touch with a woman who's a good friend of mine. You can tell her I sent you. Her name is Karis Nafty. She's an animal behaviorist as well as a divorce specialist for mediating conflicts between people over animals and divorce. So she and I have a lot in common. We have a different opinion, but we have a lot in common. So you can also look on Facebook for Karis.
Her name is Karis.
Karis Nafty, Nafte. She will also, and tell her I sent you, and see what she thinks, because I think that, so I'm giving a program to psychiatrists and psychologists and medical doctors who are part of the CSU psychological group about the signing and writing of emotional support animal letters so that people can get their dogs in places they don't belong or can't get in naturally.
Right.
And, I always say to each and every one of those doctors, if they write those letters, they better have that dog certified as able to be in a public space by an animal behaviorist, or they're opening themselves up for incredible liability. Because if they say that this dog can go into a no pet building to live in the apartment of this person, they not only have to, and they never have ever meet the animal. So that's the negligent part, in my opinion, which this hasn't been tested, but in my opinion, if you've never met the dog and you're allowing the dog in a place where it doesn't belong, there's some sort of negligence there. But for my purposes, I like them to have an animal behaviorist check the dog out and see if the dog can go in a public space. Because of course, if you have a dog in a no pet building, that dog is supposed to remain in your apartment. Of course, we all know that the dog has to go out a few times a day to go to the bathroom, unless of course it's paper trained, and those are those little dogs that are paper trained, which is great. The other thing that most psychologists and doctors don't do is they don't explain to their clients who get letters that they have an emotional support animal what the limitations of that approval or that accommodation is. It's in your apartment. That's it. You do not get accommodation in the public space. You have to ask the people in the public space if it's okay for you to get on the elevator, for you to come out into the hall if they're afraid, because they bought in that building for a reason. They could be highly allergic to animals. They could be deathly afraid of animals. I know some of us would say, oh, how could that be so? But Susan's getting on the bandwagon of, I'm a little afraid of my dog because she might bite me. So she could understand how people who don't have animals might be a little afraid of dogs. So when you talk to someone about Kathy gave you some great information, and I believe she's an animal behaviorist as well as a trainer. But I know that Jeff is a behaviorist.
No,
And
the
I know-
behaviorist has to be a veterinarian. Is that right?
No, you can have an animal behaviorist pass the test. There are veterinarians who are animal behaviorists, yes, and those are the best type.
But
And
they
that's
can be PhDs or have master's
Exactly.
degrees and be
Right.
certified.
and they can go through a ton of training and get some certification after their name, and they're pretty good as well. I'm not requiring anybody to find a vet because I think there are 10 in the United States who are veterinarians who are animal behaviorists. Jeff told me he's the only one in New Mexico. So you really want to be able to find someone who can help you. It is so key. So if you're having such hesitancy, which I would too, and I think Connie would agree she would as well, I don't know that you want to move forward until you really feel this is where I want to be with Maggie. And it's not like, so I had vet students send me a bunch of questions when I spoke to them 2 weeks ago. And one of the questions was, what do you do with a client who comes in and tells you everything they've learned about what's wrong with their dog off of Dr. Google? And I said, say thank you. I said, say thank you, because they are so frightened. They don't know what's wrong with their dog. They figure they're helping you by telling you everything that they learned on the internet about what they see in their dog. And it might be totally bass-ackwards. However, why defend your ego when people are just trying to find a way to help their pet? So say, thank you so much. I appreciate all the time you put in. This is great information. I'm going to review it, but right now let's talk about what's going on with him, and we can work together with this information later on, because it may be spot on, or we may find something that's a little different. I mean, to make sure you are right. So that's my thing again, remember? You don't have to be right. You need to get it right. You don't have to be right. So that's the important piece when you're talking to your vet, which of course, as we go back to what I said before, which was, I couldn't believe the vet asked for $25. I thought to myself, well, I don't want to be right, but boy, he didn't get it right with customer service out of the box. So Susan, try those two people. You can write to Kara. She lives in Europe, South Africa, in fact. So she's going to be up in the morning, and tell her that I sent you, that you have a reactive dog that you'd like to talk to her about. And if I can think of anybody else, I will let you know. I'm sure I know somebody else. I just can't think of it right now.
Yeah.
And Kieran, before God, I can't believe a half hour is gone. How does this happen? Kieran, what's up with our book and our boy, Leo?
The weather isn't much better here. It's about 60 Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Which is quite cold for this part of the world. 10 days of rain. And Europe is, Ireland especially, is having its rainstorms at the moment. So I think the planet is probably trying to tell us
We had
quietly.
terrible rain here too. And this is the first time I've been here, because when I was in Brooklyn, it rained a lot. But it's the first time I've been here probably for 2 months that it rained in North Carolina.
It was, no, the locals were saying, like a few months ago, back in, I think, July or August, it was about, 105 or 6. I can't remember exactly the Fahrenheit, but it was the hottest summer most of the locals could ever remember. And but a week ago, it was the heaviest rain they could remember as well. So
yeah, we're all getting that new weather pattern, right? We're getting that. Here in North Carolina, they said, oh my God, it was 79 degrees on Saturday. And they said, oh my God, we have never had that kind of weather in December in Eastern North Carolina. So I think it's crazy all over the place. And then of course, Connie's waiting for the rain, which then will be followed closely by the mudslides.
Absolutely. And on Saturday here, it was 59 degrees.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're not supposed to be 59. So Kieran,
not in Metro LA.
Nope, not at this time of the year. It's supposed to be the beautiful spring weather of Metro LA this time. This was when I always went out to Drew.
Kind of mid 60s.
Yeah.
We're moving into our normal rainy season, but we used to get it over the entire winter. Now, we get it in 2 days.
Right. Just deluge.
Deluge.
So Kieran, so it's cold in Tenerife and rainy in Tenerife. I'm sorry. But you're still in Tenerife by the ocean, so that's not too bad.
Not too bad at all, no. It's a nice place to sit out the COVID. So it could be a year or 2 more years if the way things are going.
I know.
Anyway, sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Rebound Dog is planning something in early January or 3rd week of January, which might be of interest, which is we're getting a collection of book authors and they're going to spend 40 seconds talking about themselves, 40 seconds about their book, and 40 seconds giving a message they'd like to send out to, if you like, dog owners, the pet industry, charities, the voluntary sector. In other words, with the rebound spirit, how things should be disrupted, to use that word. Now, not in the same meaning as weather disruption, but that's the event and the message going out. So I will send you a note tomorrow about it. And
great, because I'd love to be the 40 seconds of nipped in the bud too, so we can get conflict resolution out there. So I have to write to Spencer to see how we might do that, because that's a book too. But he might have his book authors already. I'll be on the second wave, but I get it.
No. There's a spot reserved if you'd like to participate.
Absolutely. So we'll have to talk about that. Send us all the information, and I'll share it with Connie and Susan and Sally. Sally's not here today because Sally did a photo shoot with some Irish setters today. So she had 4 rum raisin Irish setters at her house. She has her usual 2. And then Athena's sister Calypso was there. And Junie's sister Lyric was there. And she was using Lyric as her model because Lyric was the only Irish setter she found who was well behaved and would sit. Because we don't necessarily do that. We are really bad owners. Well, some Irish setter owners are really great Irish setter owners. I will only characterize myself as a laissez-faire Irish setter owner. I don't necessarily make them sit or down or do any. I'll say I did with my first one, but like my children, my oldest son is much better behaved than my youngest son. I just run out of steam. So what's new for Leo before we move on? What's anything new with Leo? I'm going to say the title. When your child asks for a pet, one-eyed Leo guides the conversation.
Yes, that's the name. It's a lot of things moving, but when there's an announcement, I'll let you know. But
perfect.
It's the usual slow build. It's inch by inch, but these things do happen. So.
And thank you for sharing it with Barbara, because she will take it and give it to the rest of the Wheaton group, like Connie has done, because it really is important for us to share it. So I've shared it with the Irish setter people, and maybe we can reach out to the Catan people and see if Susan can share it with the Catan Club of America. I have to tell you, Susan, one of the best things you can do is join the Catan Club of America, because then you can find people in your neighborhood who have Catans, who you can sort of matriculate with, be mentored by, or a mentor, or just survive Catans. Like, I know that Connie does a lot of work with other Wheatons in the obedience realm and in the performance realm and in the confirmation realm. And they all survive because they all have Wheatons. And so they know what they're up against, like Irish setter people. We know we're up against, and we're willing to do it because we're crazy. But it always works better, and you always have more patience if you're with people who are navigating the same kind of personality that you're navigating.
Well, I think that the problem, though, is that most of the Catans don't have this type of personality. And that's
fine. And then you say to them, okay, so I have a broken one. How might I fix it? Because most Irish setters don't fight, but the 2 bitches who are looking for homes, the 11-year-olds fight. And, that happens. I can have girls that like each other and girls that don't like each other. And it has nothing to do with how you train them. It's just, their DNA and what they do. I'm sure the terriers are the same, Connie. You can have.
Absolutely the same. I mean, Bammy and Patsy, mother and daughter, literally from the first breath Patsy took, they got along famously, but they had their moments. They had mother-daughter moments. And, having been raised with 2 sisters and as my only siblings, I know all about that.
Oh, yeah. I have a sibling like that, too.
Yeah. So it's to be expected.
And, I think people, hopefully, although I did find someone on the internet who was saying sort of mean things to a woman who was asking for a companion for her 90-pound Irish setters. Irish setters are not supposed to be 90 pounds.
Whoa.
And they posted on Facebook, well, you didn't take any of our advice. And so why should you get a dog to exercise your dog? You should get your dog out. You should stop feeding him so much. And I wrote and I said, we need to nurture people instead of chastise people, because really, if you want the dog to have better care, you really have to. So if anyone says, well, your dog's a crazy Catan, you go, you're absolutely right, and I need your help, and I'm willing. So you got to be willing to take, their advice, or to take their advice and see if it works, because like with the medication we talked about today, you really want to make sure it's going to work.
Right.
So,
Right.
you don't want to rush in and have an immediate fix that might do more harm than good. So you
Right.
really have to do your homework. You should talk to a number of people. And I know that sometimes, and this isn't a criticism, veterinarians will give owners medication to calm their dogs down because they don't have any other, they can tell you to go to obedience class. They can tell you to go to, a professional handler to, work the dog. However, people might not want to do that. And so this would be the quick fix. So just do your due diligence and then see if the medication that they've offered might be what she needs to take the edge off, and how long. And please, please, please ask the question, long-term effects. Because when I had my dog on, it was the skin medication, Apoquel, there was a long-term effect to their liver and kidneys that I did not know about. And so I only had her on it for about 6 months. And I said, I don't mind her cruddy skin that much.
Right.
I don't want to compromise her. So, I mean, even heartworm in some dogs has issues. Flea and tick stuff in some dogs have issues. You just have to know what your breed is, what issues they might as a breed have, because I know that there are some breeds that react terribly to heartworm or to NexGard or to any sort of medication. So
that's why that genetic testing can be really helpful to identify
so
Absolutely.
And I haven't done that yet. I don't know if I can do a cheek swab with
Yes,
Maggie.
you can. Yes, you can.
You might not be able to, but
you might not be able to, but it is, that's how I've done it on my adult dogs when DNA testing first came in. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Really?
And it is important. Yeah. To find out.
But
So
you can have your
do
vet, but you can have your vet do a blood draw.
Right.
Your blood as your DNA, right? And in fact, that's the way we do it on brand new litters of puppies when we are testing for, we pre-test the parents before breeding for any genetic diseases that they have, to make sure that we're doing a healthy breeding. And every breed has some kind of genetic disease, as Deborah will tell you. But you can also do it. You can also do it by a blood draw on brand new puppies. So if Maggie has an issue, have your vet draw the blood and send it off to a DNA lab, either a university or there are services like Embark, for instance.
That you can send it to.
Yeah, and it's very inexpensive. It's like $135 to.
It's well worth it to find out.
It's well worth it.
And I just had someone contact me because they had a Newfie and now they want a poodle kind of dog, and a doodle, they said. And I said, okay,
oh God.
So whatever kind, you would have been proud of me. I said, whatever kind of doodle you want, just make sure you check on the health requirements and testing of the poodle and whatever other dog, if it's a Newfie, if it's a whatever Labrador,
a burner.
Golden,
that's
a
the
burner.
hot new,
That was
that's
what
the
I
hot
was
new
thinking of,
combination of Bernedoodle. Yeah.
Or now they have Irish doodles. So if you're going to if you have a certain look that you want, just make sure that you look at the National Club Health Directory on the internet for those clubs to know what that breeder should be testing the dog and the male and the female for before they breed them, because then they'll be able to make sure that they're giving you the healthiest dog that you would have gotten if you'd gotten an Irish setter or a poodle or whatever, because you're doing the testing. And so, of course, if you take a shelter dog instead, they will be a much nicer dog to take and be much happier that you took them instead of the dogs that were bred to be not one breed or another. They've already come out and they're there waiting for you at the shelters or at the Humane Society. So maybe that would be a better choice. I actually had someone who I'm working with tomorrow who bought a mixed breed. I don't know what it is. It's something very special. And she bought it for $5,000 and then had to spend $12,000 because it had kennel cough and almost died.
Wow.
So we really need to be more careful shoppers. We really need to be more careful pet owners. And if you want a dog that is a hybrid, Kieran, right? There are many, many hybrids in the shelters.
The vast majority.
The vast majority.
The vast majority, without exception.
The vast majority. In fact, a survey was done in conjunction with the AKC. It was done by the National Animal Interest Alliance, NAIA, several years ago. It was a nationwide survey of purebred dogs in animal shelters, and they comprised anywhere between 5 and 10% of the population of the animal shelters, and every local and national dog breed club has a rescue team, and they are always on the shelter list to be called if a purebred comes in. Now, the shelters don't very often know what the dogs are, but nonetheless, the rescue teams are always monitoring the dogs that are taken into the shelters. So the vast majority of dogs that are sitting in shelters are mixed breeds.
Yeah. And P.S., a number of them are the doodles who didn't work out, because they have personalities of one or the other dog. And maybe you were hoping for the poodle and got the lab, totally different personality, or hoping for the lab and got the poodle, and they're too smart for their own good. So that's a totally different personality. So don't not think that you can get a Labradoodle, a Golden Doodle, a Bernedoodle.
They're in the shelters.
Because if they don't work out after, they're really cute until they're about 6 months old and they start to consume your house.
Right.
So then you can find them at a shelter. So it might behoove you, and then just really get a good trainer in or read a really good book. I always recommend Mother Knows Best by Carol Lee Benjamin. It's an oldie but goodie, and it definitely has, and she wrote a book, Mother Knows Best, for shelter dogs. So how to help a shelter dog who may be coming from another family, who may have lived in the shelter for a long time, who may have some reactivity issues or personality issues. She has a whole book dedicated to shelter dogs. So highly recommend it. So while we're closing up, because we could talk forever, I think I have to make this almost an hour, really. I love it. I just never want to hang up. I'm going to start with Kieran. So Kieran, what are you up to this week, the week before Christmas? Well, 2 weeks before Christmas.
2 weeks before Christmas. Gosh. I think just trying to catch up on a mountain of work and get through it as quickly as possible. So nothing. I have a friend from Ireland coming over in January, so that's.
Oh, nice.
So he's going to stay about 3 weeks. This is a friend that goes back the best part of 30 years or so. And we've worked together over many years. So.
Kieran, what part of Ireland are you from?
The Midlands. So 50 miles west of Dublin.
Okay. I went to Ireland in 1983 and did some genealogy work there. Yeah. Dunboyne and County Cork.
That's interesting. My sister's a genealogist.
Really?
Yes. She had... She often had me out in graveyards scrubbing gravestones to find certain people, and it always ended up, it was the last gravestone I'd scrub.
Yeah, of course it was.
Yes, and the last time she had me going through a briar field to try and find old runes for a couple of hours. So
absolutely. So
I would say having a genealogist in the family isn't always a blessing.
No, especially if they recruit you to do some of their work for them. I have to say that my roots go back to Innis in County, I think that's County Cork, isn't it? Or is it County Clare?
Clare. The other side of the country, yeah. Right,
it's the other side. So Innis and Clare, and that's where my grandfather was from. Oh no, he was from Cork. My great-grandmother was from Clare with all of her family. And we actually met my Uncle Mike, who was a road man. So he laid all the roads. He worked on all the roads in County Clare. So he was a pretty smart guy.
Well, my people came over during the potato famine, but they came from Galway and Cork.
Yep. Down south, right, Kieran?
Down south.
Cork has always had the reputation of producing the most entrepreneurs.
Really?
Interesting.
Yeah.
That was my grandfather for sure.
Yeah, I did kiss the Blarney Stone. Yeah,
I did that. Do you know you have to hang upside down and backwards to kiss?
Yes.
I did that. So now you all know why I'm the way I am, right? Now you know.
Absolutely. No question.
All right, guys, I'm going to let you guys go. I love you all. Thank you so much. This is Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law and Mediation, the Why Do Pets Matter podcast, and of course, this wonderful MAAP community. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch with me. HamiltonLawandMediation.com has an info button. Just write me. So until next week, kiss your pets for me.